Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Hello, welcome to the New York Parrot Literary Corner. My name is Dustin Pickering. I am your host and anchor. Today we have Ron Whitehead, who is a poet, writer, editor, publisher, professor, scholar, and activist. He is the author of 24 books and 34 albums. In 1994, he wrote the poem Never Give Up with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In 1996, he produced the official Hunter S. Thompson tribute featuring Hunter, his mother Virginia, his son Juan, Johnny Depp, Warren Zevon, Douglas Brinkley, David Amran, and Roxanne Pulitzer, and many more. Ron has produced thousands of events and festivals, including 24 and 48 and 72 and 90-hour nonstop music and poetry insomniac-thons in Europe and the USA. He's presented thousands of readings, talks, and performances around the world. He has also edited and published hundreds of titles, including works by President Jimmy Carter, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Seamus Heaney, Wendell Berry, Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac, William S. Burroughs, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Rita Dove, Diane DiPrima, Bono, John Updike, Douglas Brinkley, Jim Carroll, Ann Waldman, Joy Harjo, Yoko Ono, Robert Hunter, Amiri Baraka, Hunter S. Thompson, and numerous others. He is a recipient of many awards. His work has been translated into 20 languages. 2018, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher presented Ron with a Lifetime Achievement for Work in the Arts Award. He was also named Kentucky's Beat Poet Laureate 2019 and was the first U.S. citizen to be named UNESCO's Tartus of Literature Writer in Residence. He is the co-founder and chief of Poetics for Gonzo Fest Louisville. Thanks for joining us today, Ron. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hello, Dustin.
Very nice to talk with you today.
I'm honored to be here.
Yes,
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. We're honored to have you. It's quite a pleasure. I hopefully we'll have a great talk. If there's anything you want to add to your list of accolades there, and say anything about yourself that wasn't mentioned that you think is interesting and that the viewers might be appreciative of, feel free to add that in there.
There's a new movie coming out this summer about me. We could talk about that.
I was actually going to ask you about that. What can you tell us about it? It's called Outlaw Poets. When is it coming out, and what can you say about it?
It's Outlaw Poet, The Legend of Ron Whitehead. Been in the works for 11 years. Produced by Storm Generation Films and Dark Star TV. It's a documentary, full-length documentary on my life and work, and so I'm excited about it. And I told the production team that I wasn't sure yet if I would sit at the premiere, if I would sit on the back row next to the door so I could escape quickly if necessary, or if I'm going to sit down closer to the front in the middle. So there is a little bit of nervousness about the release of it by me.
Controversial material, or
do what?
Was there a lot of controversial material, or do you think people will be like, "Oh, wow,"
No, not really. I mean, they have enough footage, film footage for several films, and so it's been a big job for the editing team to editorial down to cover the wide range of juice adventures I've been on in my 70 years, but what they've allowed me to see so far, I have high hopes that the film will be of the highest quality, and they're making it so that it will be accessible to all ages. So they're taking that, removing the F-bombs and things like that. So,
Okay. It's just that you're not sure what's in the film quite yet. You just know it's family friendly, and you're not quite sure if there's material in there that may potentially embarrass or be strange to you looking at it. So
well, a few highlights are there's my mother, who's the oldest of 13. I'm the oldest of 6. She turns 89 in 2 weeks. There's a great interview with her at the Beaver Dam Cafe down in Ohio County in Western Kentucky, where Bill Monroe birthed bluegrass music, where I grew up on a farm. And there's a brief interview with me at my father's grave, and he died 10 years ago, and he worked at the coal mines for 46 years. There's footage of the farm where I grew up. There's animation that includes the actual interview, the Dalai Lama and me. When I first met the Dalai Lama, his first visit to Kentucky, I had the opportunity to ask him one question, and I told him in that interview about a 48-hour nonstop music and poetry insomniacathon I was producing for the university to kick off their week-long 50-year celebration of the Beat Generation. And I told him over 300 young people from around the world will be performing at my event. Would he please share with me a message I could then share with young people? And what happened after that was one of the strangest and most life-changing experiences of my life. And that story is told in the film. And so I'm really excited about that. Also, there will be unseen footage from the official Hunter S. Thompson tribute, which I produced here in Hunter's hometown of Louisville. And it includes our unseen footage of Hunter, of Johnny Depp, or Yvonne, David Amram, some other greats. And so I'm excited about that. There's travel, touring, adventure footage of, there'll be footage of, there was one I did with a band I put together, the Viking Hillbilly Apocalypse Review. I lived in Iceland for 2 years, and I have 2 godchildren there. I've continued to work with some of their leading musicians, and there's footage from Iceland. There's some footage from this cross-country tour, coast to coast in the U.S. that I did with the band, and where I set up the tour so that half the shows were done in nature, for nature, and half were done in venues for people. For example, we performed on the rim of the Grand Canyon. We performed in the Mojave Desert. We performed in northern New Mexico, where Georgia O'Keeffe painted some of her most renowned paintings. And we performed at the oldest sequoia tree in the Sequoia National Forest in California. We performed at Big Sur and many other amazing places. So some of that footage will be included in there. And it's just, one other thing, when I was in the Beaver Dam Rocking Chair Marathon, and I rocked in a rocking chair for 89 hours and 55 minutes. It started Saturday morning and ended Wednesday morning, and rocked nonstop, 133 people started out, and over 30 were hauled away to the hospital, having had one kind of breakdown after another. And my mom shot Super 8 video footage of the film. So there's original film footage that will be included in this documentary about me, Outlaw Poet documentary. So all of that's going to be included. It's going to be interesting. So
sounds like there's a lot of material. It sounds really captivating, fun, and you got a lot of introduced us to enough of the material to captivate us as viewers listening in to take a look at it. So it's coming out, you said, in the summer?
The official date has not been set yet, so my guess is August. It could be the end of July. I'd say the end of July to the 1st of September. That's my guesstimate in that area. I understand there is a distribution company in Los Angeles, Blood, Sweat, and Honey, who wants the film. Their goal is to get it on Netflix. I'm not sure where they are with all of that. That's behind the scenes stuff that they're working fast and furious on everything. So I don't know. A lot of it's, I'll know soon. I'll have more information in a couple of weeks.
Okay, so we'll look forward to that.
Thank you.
So what got you started in poetry writing, and why did you start writing poetry?
I think I was born to it. It was something that was in my blood, in my DNA. As I said, my dad worked at the coal. I come from a long line of farmers, coal miners, and strong men and strong women, deeply spiritual people. There are many creative musical people, particularly on mom's side, some intuitives, some psychics, some gypsies, and so I have a deep love of nature, and I spend half my time in nature and half my time with people. I love the country, I love nature, and I love the city. I love urban life. I love people, and so I respect and honor our beautiful differences. While no matter where I travel, I'm always looking for what we have in common, and I love to hear the stories of people's lives. And I think something I say often is that we're all dirty potatoes floating in the same tub of polluted water, and more bang into each other by openly, honestly sharing stories of our lives, the more we come clean. So my feeling is, in my travels, I've discovered that when I'm friendly, 99% of the people I meet are friendly. In order to have friends, I've got to be a friend. So I've always loved to travel. Since the first book clubs I joined when I was a little boy were the geography, the biography book clubs. I wanted to know about the world. Down there on the farm, when the postman stopped by, there wasn't much traffic, just sounds of nature. But I realized that the postman was the link to the outside world. So I started reading at an early age. And when I was 7 years old, all of our relatives had come from Louisville. The house, our old farmhouse, was full. And the furniture had been moved aside for singing and music, stories, and poems. My dad, although he dropped out of school in the 10th grade, loved poetry and memorized poems. And he encouraged me to memorize poems. And so I just had a love of poetry. of words from the earliest age. And at that event on Thanksgiving Day, when I turned 7 years old, so I was born on Thanksgiving Day, November 23rd, 1950. And after a song, my mom and her dad were singers. My mom sings alto. I asked Daddy to recite Hiawatha. Now that's a long poem, but he recited one part of it. And after that, he said, "Okay, Ronnie, it's your turn." And so I love trees, and I had memorized Joyce Kilmer's poem Trees, and so I recited that, and I got an applause from everybody there. And there was a recognition in me at that moment that even though I didn't begin to fully understand or comprehend what it meant to be a poet, I knew that connection was made, that intuitively and inside of me, I knew that this was my calling, to be a poet. And so I have devoted my life to that. And so I learned it at one point. I went to college after high school. I left high school, graduated when I was 17. And then I dropped out after 3 years. I was just too wild. It was too boring. And 10 years later, when I knew exactly what my dreams were, what I wanted to do, I went back, and I ended up teaching college and university for 20 years, while at the same time doing all of my creative work. I've been living and being my dream for over 30 years, and it took me 8 years to build the bridge from where I was to where I wanted to be. And I tell people all the time, if I can do it, you can too. Find a dream, build a bridge from where you are by taking one step at a time, and become your dream. Your life will be changed like never before. And so one thing that I did when I went back to school was that I learned all of the traditional forms of poetry, and learned scansion, which is the poetic form of grammar. What grammar is to prose, scansion is to poetry. And so I ended up working with was blessed to work and continue to be with so many of the greats. Lawrence Ferlinghetti and I, who died not too long ago, 801, founded the first ever paperback bookstore, City Lights Books, in San Francisco. I got him nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature. He graduated from the University, the Sorbonne in France. And so we had a number of talks about this subject of the formal education, learning tradition, and then once you're done with that, we both did it, throw it all out the window, go your own way, and allow your own original voice, your own authentic voice to sing. And those traditions that I learned, that Ferlinghetti learned, are, having learned them, are always with you. They're inherent in you, and they come out in your work, but they come out in a natural, not forced way. So my friendship had a big impact on my life, like my friendship with Hunter S. Thompson and many other people. So anyway, poetry has taken this wild nature Kentucky farm boy to many places around the world, and I'm thankful for all of it.
Absolutely, it's quite an adventure, and met some fascinating people and been friends with the greats, and traveled the world with poetry. Do you have a poem to share with us?
Well, I have so many of them. You know, my friend David Amram, who's 90 now, who was the he's one of America's and the world's great composers, but he introduced the French horn to jazz. He played with Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk, all the main jazz cats, but he also did the first ever jazz poetry reading with Jack Kerouac in 1957 at the Broadway in New York City. He was Leonard Bernstein's first guest composer for the New York Philharmonic. He's done film scores, Manchurian Candidate, Spinning Grass. Well, he's coming to Louisville, Kentucky next month, along with Frank Messina, the New York Mets poet. And Frank was a poet and painter and actor. He was in Martin Scorsese's newest film, The Irishman. And I came up with the idea to produce a new album, Amram, Whitehead, Messina, 3 generations, new and selected works. And David's 90, I'm 70, and Frank is 53. And so I'm excited about that project. And I decided, this film is coming out. I get asked often, what do you mean outlaw poet? What are you talking about? And so I wrote a piece called On Being an Outlaw Poet. Mm-hmm. That's one I could read, but also I'm going to record. I grew up in a time between times, the Kentucky Suite. It's 8 poems I wrote that, put that together to record with David Amram, who will be doing the music for that. So I could read either On Being an Outlaw Poet or a piece from the Kentucky Suite. Which would you prefer?
Let's do Kentucky Suite. That sounds interesting.
Okay. All right. The Bottoms. Once upon a time, when I was a boy, in early March, Daddy bought 30 acres of bottom land down on Rough River. Jasper, Pappy Whitehead, and Spadge Tooley and other men helped Daddy saw down giant trees. I helped too. Then we put sticks of dynamite at the base of the stumps and with loud explosions blew loose the vast roots. Then our team of horses pulled and pulled the roots on out. We built enormous bonfires and burned the trees. The days were cool and the clouds danced through blue skies. I was an excited pioneer boy on a great adventure down in the bottoms near the banks of Rough River, where armies of fierce water moccasins lived. And every night, bobcats howled. Every kind of creature lived in the bottoms. The bottoms had never been tamed until we arrived. With our horses, in time, we broke the land and planted corn. We harvested the corn by hand, filled the back of the wagon. Then my brother Brad and I rode on the corn as Daddy guided our horses several miles back to our barn, where we unloaded it into a corn stall. In late fall, we hauled corn to the mill. As it was being ground, we poured sorghum molasses into the corn to add minerals. Then we hauled it in canvas bags back to our farm, where we stored it. Through the winter, we fed the grain to our cows and horses. I grew up in a time between times. I grew up on the thin line between the pioneer past and the science fiction future, a cataclysmic age of change. Okay, there's some history there. It's
right. Very interesting poem, historical, but it's also autobiographical. Very interesting. I enjoyed listening to it.
Thank you. And the way I grew up, being a lover of nature, as I know my father was too, seeing nature destroyed and plundered, to destroy those virgin forests, to create fields, to grow crops, and then to see the coal mines come in and strip the land and pull the virgin trees up by their roots, to dig down to the coal, to haul away for energy. And so seeing all that, I knew there had to be a better way. And so I just naturally, as I became a poet naturally, I also became an environmentalist. And So I've been a fighter for equal rights for all people all my life, especially since the 60s when I became an activist. And I continue to fight that fight for people of all walks of life. No one is better than anyone else. And I also fight that fight for Mother Earth. So my work is to uplift and inspire, to comfort and heal, and to awaken everyone, including myself, to the fact that we all have a nonstop river of creative fire flowing through us. And society, you really can't blame people because people are conditioned to live the way they live, but society, in time, through time, forces us, attempts to force us to not believe in ourselves and to become yes people, to conform, to go along, do what we're told to do. And I have always resisted that. And it's been a fight. It was for much of my early years in particular. I fight the right to myself, and I encourage everybody to fight that fight, to be your own honest, genuine, original self.
Absolutely. And we'll take a moment to thank all the mothers out there coming up on Mother's Day, and God
Amen.
And God bless your own mother. We need more creative minds, more inspiring people out there. So, thanks for joining us on the program. Just thinking about what you're saying about individuality and society, all the trouble that society can cause us in some ways, like oppressing our individuality. How do you think we can reach young people through poetry and the arts to get them inspired by that?
It's a good question, and I've been doing that all my life, because poetry you've got to give young people the freedom to express themselves without censorship. And I have 3 grown kids, 7 grandchildren, 2 godchildren in Iceland, like I mentioned, and I have worked through the producing poetry and music events throughout Europe and the United States. I've taught my kids that there's a time and a place for everything, and you got to use some common sense to know. And manners, as I learned good manners, be nice to people. Don't take any crap off of people, but know when to speak, when to say certain things, but always be true to yourself. And so I think that we should provide opportunities for young people to express themselves in the deepest ways and without censorship. And it's one thing I did in all of my college classes. I taught literature, the arts, writing, and I discovered that the fastest way to help students grow as writers and as people, to find their own authentic, genuine, original voices, selves, is to encourage them to revisit their earliest memories and take the journey anew from those earliest memories through your life, writing your best and worst experiences down and creating a journal, a notebook. Begin to write your own autobiography. And it was how I discovered my own voice as a writer. And so we've got to provide those opportunities. And I discovered a long time ago that by producing poetry and music events, that naturally gave young people the opportunity. And I invited people of all ages, all walks of life to participate, perform, and attend those events without judgment. And us is lifted up. And so it's easy to be critical. It's harder to praise and encourage other people. The biggest gifts I ever receive is thank you. And if I, and I try to tell people thanks when they make an effort, when they go for it, when they do whatever they want to do. Thank you, congratulations, keep up. Keep doing the good work. It's so important, and it is. So more encouragement, less criticism, and allow young people the freedom to express themselves. And I'm not talking about. Lawrence Ferlinghetti told me one time, he said, I don't remember what we were talking about. We were at Cafe Trieste in North Beach, San Francisco, and he said, Ron, don't be so open-minded, your brain falls out. And I was like, we laughed, I laughed, and I said, that's thank you. That's a great suggestion.
My grandmother used to say the same thing.
Oh. It's wonderful, I think. Yeah.
Right.
So know when to speak out, but when that opportunity is there, especially these days, I mean, I'm so thankful for and all the young people who have spoken out and called for justice. And so I'm hopeful for some people give up on the human race, and I'm not one of those people. I was born filled with hope, and I continue to be filled with hope for the human race. Mother Earth can go on without the human race. We know that if we study history just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I have always believed that technology and the new can survive hand in hand with Mother Earth, with nature. But we got to figure out ways to live in harmony. Without doing damage, without hurting others, without hurting Mother Earth. And I fully believe we can do it. And I'm encouraged and inspired by all the young people who feel that way and who are calling for change and who are acting, doing everything they can to bring change to Mother Earth, to us, to the human race. So.
Excellent words. I hope that we continue to inspire people through the poetry, through the arts, and open expression. So we have a remainder. If you want to say anything in final words to impart to the coming generations and artists out there, say thank you to a few people out there who have inspired you.
Thank you to a few people out there.
Well, my two people I thank my mother. No man, no matter how strong, how good, is nearly as strong or as good as a good, strong mother. So that one goes out to Mama and all the mothers out there. And the other, going back to that my first encounter with the Dalai Lama, when he was giving me that message, all I heard, and this was some kind of spiritual transmission, I call it transmission, took place because I was hearing the poem which I wrote after our encounter, titled Never Give Up. And this is discussed in the film. And the poem, the Dalai Lama came over to me after he gave me the message, and I was still sitting in my chair, and I held my hand up, and he grabbed my hand with both of his hands. He squeezed it and bowed, blessing me and blessing the message that he had given me. And I've been sharing the message with people everywhere I go ever since. And the poem Never Give Up is now all over the world. It's been in National Geographic. It's in 2 of the Dalai Lama's books. It's in banners at rock concerts. And as half the time, it has the Dalai Lama's in it and not mine. I wrote the poem, but I wouldn't have written it without him giving me the message and without that exchange of energy. And the poem is Never Give Up. No matter what's going on, never give up. Develop the heart. Too much energy in the world is spent developing the mind. Instead of the heart, develop the heart. Be compassionate, not just for your friends, but for everyone. Be compassionate. Work for peace in the world and in your heart. Work for peace. And I say again, never give up. No matter what's going on around you, never give up. And that's from the Dalai Lama and yours truly, Ron Whitehead. And thank you for having me on your program.
Quite welcome. It's been very inspiring. I've enjoyed talking with you. So we have a little bit of extra time if you want to go in a couple of words. It's kind of hard.
Well,
on the spot there.
Well, since it's Mother's Day and you guys heard the autobiographical early memory, one more mother poem. Mm-hmm. And Mama killed chickens, chopped their heads off, put her foot on the little hen's head, grabbed it hard. The head just laid there on the grass while the little chicken body went flopping all over the yard. Us kids ran like crazy, dodging chicken blood. I liked it better when Mama took the .22 rifle to the barn and would shoot a little hen off the high rafter up near the top of the barn where the chickens all roosted. Mama was a good shot. One Christmas Eve, there was a terrible storm. Daddy was off at the mines. Mama said, "Come on." And all us kids piled into the back of the old pickup truck. Mama had the shotgun. We drove slow through the storm with Mama looking all around. Then she pulled over and said, "Come on." We followed. We walked a ways until we came upon a tree, a cedar tree. And Mama said, "Get behind me." We did. And she took aim and shot the tree in the trunk with both barrels, blew it clean in two. Mama said, "Y'all get the Christmas tree and come on." Us kids let out. We were so happy because Christmas had finally come. Now, how many of you mothers have taken your kids out in the countryside with your double barrel shotgun going down a Christmas tree, a cedar